So slow today. Did it start for you? No?
Sounds like it's live.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome at our Core Protocol Sync. We'll share updates on the Core Protocol side from our team from the last week and plans for the immediate future. Ivan, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Let me share a screen. Yep, here it is. So last week we finally merged the PR, which will be helpful in order to like integrate the DSN. Yeah, in future. So basically, it supplies the sequential pieces and their indices to the plot. Nothing too fancy here. We can just use that in future, like to supply to DSN. Basically, right now we will have some API like this. Yeah, get sequential pieces where we can supply like from which piece index hash we can have like pieces and the amount of pieces which we want to have. Yeah. Um, so that's it for this PR, I guess. Apart from that, mostly during last week, I was working on the like updating the sloth library and merging that into like our Subspace monorepo. Yeah. So starting off, I started with the like removing at all the CUDA feature from our sloth library. Yeah, it just like involves like removing like a whole folder and a bunch of code. Yeah, nothing too fancy here. Yeah, apart from that, there was like a minor PR, which was related to the adding the um, send and sync implementation of the for the encoder. Yeah, because it basically contains the raw pointers. Yeah, you just can't. It just automatically implements like not send and not sync for that, which is not the case. And I actually needed that for the integration. Yeah, because we usually like share encoder like between different threads and tasks. Yeah, that was a minor one, and there was an integration with our subspace solving library in the monorepo. Yeah, it didn't change the API of the subspace solving that much, but the subspace codec is now not copy because we don't share the because the encoder right now the OpenCL encoder is wrapped with an arc, I believe. Um, Let me just find it. Yeah, right now it's like option arc mutex. It is option right now because um, there's still there still can be an error like on some machine. Yeah, and if we happen to encounter like an error, we just use the CPU encoder from now on. Yeah, and if we like even if we created an encoder, and if we fail to batch encode with that, we just fall back to the like CPU encoder for future. Um, yeah. Um, yeah. And apart from that, there was a PR to the substrate telemetry. Yeah, which already got one improve like right now. Yeah, it basically adds the support of the offline geographic discovery VIP. So yeah, it uses MaxMindDB. Yeah, and there's a fancy um, um, yeah, there's a yeah, basically it just embeds the whole database into the binary for that. And with that we can just like discover the location of the peers via VIP. Yeah, just has some fancy pair like this where we can yeah, we can just use the database and just ask for the and just look up over it. um yeah. Yeah, that's it. Like for from the perspective of the done stuff during the last week. This week I'm working on the adding the support of the for the parity DB for the parity DB's B tree iterator to going backwards. it is needed in order to like try to remove the RocksDB from the farmer. Yeah, and we use like going backwards for the iterators in our farmer in the plot. Yeah, so it's just that we can make it. Yeah, and there is no offense from the party guys, but yeah, we just put the message that like B-tree counts are not that optimized for a lot of data, but I guess it's not the case for us because we don't store like more than, I believe, like 64 bytes or so. Yeah, so everything should be good to go. Yeah, so I'm working on that right now. And apart from that, I don't have any tasks more. Yeah, that's all on my end.
On the Go IP, the reason why we needed that, or like nice to have, basically, because right now, like previously, it was using the online services that are free, and the substrate telemetry didn't have any way to specify tokens for those, even if you had them. So what happened is that many of the nodes were not geolocatable in our telemetry, so they just were unknown. We didn't have them on the map in the telemetry, and also we had a lot of logs with errors from those services that we were trying to bombard with requests, and they were not able to respond because we exceeded the quota. And that was even worse when we were restarting, because every time we restart, there's in-memory cache for those IP addresses, and it was just storming those services with requests, and it just wasn't good. So now we can do that offline quickly, and we don't have to reach out to any services. And that means that all of the locatable IP addresses are basically located, and we have them displayed on the map so we can have better visibility where users come from.
Yeah, thanks, Nazar. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Yvonne, did I hear you right that you're complete on all tasks and you're looking for more work?
Not yet. I still like have that task, which is minor, I guess, right now, which is related to the like updating the party DB and adding support for the like iterators to go backwards. Yeah, I still have that task. Yeah, but yeah, as soon as I finish it, I won't have any. Yeah.
Okay, and everything you're doing on the networking side, or sorry, on the DSN side, is pending the networking PR to be merged and finalized.
True.
Yeah. Okay. Nazar, do you have any next steps in mind right now?
I'm sorry, making notes for myself. Not immediately. I believe I messaged something to Ivan, but I think that's all that he mentioned. I'll need to think about more about that. But I believe when Shamil measures his pull request, there will be way more work to do. So just a little bit dependency locked on that, but we'll fix that.
Yeah, I would say just in general, Yvonne, if there's anything you can do just to continue like optimizing the plotter, and I think there's still a lot of work to be done there. I know you've made a lot of progress, but it's going to be like a multi-month journey of getting that as optimal as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I have oh, sorry, Ivan, please continue.
No, I just want to say, yeah, I have one thing in mind. Yeah, there was like some optimization which like I tried to make and it seemed to work for me, but I didn't make it correct. Yeah, it is like exactly for the like it is for the plot. When we evict pieces from there, it's very slow. Yeah, and we basically evicting piece one by one, but we could do that in batch. So I had an idea that we could evict that in batch. Yeah, and it seemed to like speed up like X2 or something. Yeah, from like at least for me it was on the HDD it was like speed right now of the evicting pieces is like 0.2 megabytes per second. Yeah, but it was around like 0.5 or 0.6 megabytes per second after that optimization. So I could, I guess I can work on that after that.
Yeah, I think there are several things that we can do, and we also have challenges with running on big hard drives. And that might be partially related to the fact that we have a lot of things happening in parallel. So we have a lot of plots. There are more and more things happening in parallel. So we maybe need to like discover or like limit how many parallel things we are doing, so it doesn't trash the hard drive too much. So like basically we need to invest more in benchmarks and do more experiments and try to find what is not great and how we can fix it. And we need to do those incremental updates.
Yeah, and
I
on
can
that
spend
note, I
some
think
time.
your a lot of your benching had been treating the farmer like in isolation without a node that had its own state database and archival database. And I think that that's a little bit of a canned experiment. So if there's a way that we can bench the total system, I think that will give us a more realistic setting of what our actual users have.
Okay, I don't have anything to Ivan. So thank you. Shamil, you're next.
Okay, sure. Last week, I worked on the libp2p patch to allow using Kademlia peer discovery in our use case that implies non-hashing for both peers and lookup keys. I managed to create such a patch with small changes for 2 code files with feature-gated configuration. I tested locally with 100 nodes, and the main use case, finding pieces for the range, works as expected with testing data. I fixed all comments from Ivan and Nazar and sent the PR and libp2p branch to Nazar for review. There is an issue, though, as Nazar pointed out, that it seems that the current implementation requires a network restart. And the changes that will allow backward compatibility seem to require much more time and would be very invasive in the libp2p code base. This is mainly because of the peer ID type, which is used across all protocols, not only Kademlia. That's it basically for me. I am ready to start a new task until Nazar reviews once again the PR and the libp2p patch.
When you say network restart, that just means reset, not regenesis, right?
It basically will break with high probability networking in general, just because the way feature unification works in Cargo. If you enable feature in one of the crates, but we are compiling 2 crates, that feature will get enabled in the other crate as well. So it will
Not only
basically
because
change.
of that, Nazar, sorry for interrupting. Not only because of that, it also will touch the identity protocol which we use in our networking. It's basically that farmers will reject peer IDs from nodes and vice versa.
Right. So it basically will change networking protocol. So
Right, but it
depending
doesn't.
on
But
how,
no one has to replot. I guess that's what I'm asking. We don't have to restart the history from Genesis.
well,
in order
everyone
to
has to
replot.
change the networking implementation. So
No,
at that point,
yes,
it's
reinstall the
completely different
client.
network.
So
Right, but
node and
everybody.
farmer.
Right, but you could reuse the plot and the blockchain we have in
Yes,
the meantime.
we
Yes.
avoided that rehashing issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means that we have to wait until either the next hard fork, like the next planned upgrade,
No,
or
we are not going. We'll probably not going to do it that way. We'll just need to research more with Shamil how we can implement it without breaking everything else.
Okay, that we need to change the implementation of that patch. Then it would take much more time, I believe.
Probably.
oh, so we have to make it backwards compatible within the P2P.
Yes, because it will require a lot of invasive operations within
Yeah.
the libp2p code base, which I
We are
want
changing
to
very
avoid.
fundamental things.
Okay. Do we even have any guarantee if that's going to be approved? Or are we working off our own fork right now?
We are working from a fork, and the nice thing about libp2p is that they are building it in a modular way. So we can theoretically have subspace identity protocol, which is slightly different. We just need to investigate how compatible, like how composable that is, if we can actually make it. That would be ideal, I think.
Okay, Nizar, let's when we sync up later today, let's talk about that issue a little
Okay.
bit more.
Okay. Thanks, Shamil.
Do you have any other additional work or next steps for Shamil in the meantime? Nizar?
Kind of the same as with Ivan. I think when we merge those two things together, we'll have more visibility. But there are a lot of things to do there, for sure.
One task that it makes sense for me to do is, after, of course, integration with Ivan's code, is to test that farmers actually syncing the data. So it would be very useful, and probably we need a help with our new chain ops wizard.
Okay, so just so I understand, once we have this issue resolved with the network and we're able to restart the network with these new settings, we're still going to sync the blockchain from the client in the traditional way, but we'll be able to, but we won't, the farmer won't be dependent on the client to sync it. It will sync its plot independent from the farmer DSM.
That's when we have full rollout. It's not the MVP.
Oh, okay. What will the MVP offer?
The MVP basically makes it theoretically work. When we will deploy it, we will have updated documentation where farmers will have to specify or like open more ports, basically, so they can have ports which are serving the data, and then the sync from other farmers will be opt-in. And once we test and verify that, we will be able to upgrade it to full sync from farmers. So it will be a multi-step process. We cannot just like flip the switch on day one.
Okay, but I mean, the support, I guess, in the code will be there with this MVP. It's just not going to be deployed to the network.
Yeah, and we'll have to iterate on it a little bit to make it like more efficient and stuff like that.
Okay. Can we at least test doing that like locally, like 2 nodes on a local network and one with
Sure.
a history and the other syncs?
Sure.
Yeah. Is that something that you can do now, Shamil?
I'm not sure about that, but we can discuss it with Nazar after this session.
Okay. I mean, I think that would be a great next, like once we have something at least that we can create some of a fork or whatever of that works. If you've got some time, that's something that we should do before we deploy it. You know, we should be able to at least have 2 nodes, like one node that just like creates the blockchain from Genesis, like seeds a plot, and then another node that syncs from it that has this new implementation. The port's open on the first node for the farmer DSN, and it, you know, syncs the blockchain like normal, but then it syncs the plot from the farmer and is able to start plotting and producing blocks, like kind of an end-to-end integration test of the entire system.
Yep, it makes sense.
Okay, thanks, Shamil. Ozgan, do you have anything to share this time? All right, that was quick. Luce?
Nope.
It's all integrations from this point onwards, right? Daria, do you have anything to share? We discussed a few things, but maybe you want to add something.
Well, I was going through the proof of time, your Notion document, and then the From Scaling Blockchains lectures, and then the paper. So I'm still trying to put it all together from the proof of time, from the theory side. But as far as I understand, it is not implemented yet in the network, because the only thing I found was this
It's not at all.
repository you had from like 2 years ago that says not tested. So
yeah, we were just, I guess I was just sharing that with you for awareness, but the main thing right now is the protocol specifications. You know, the consensus protocol specifications. The proof of time is basically an extension to that protocol, which we have not implemented yet.
Well, because it was, I was reading about the security risks, that it was one of the, unresolved things for the longest attacks. So, yeah. So still
It's
have
resolved.
to finish.
It's just not implemented.
yeah, I mean, but it's not yet resolved for you because it's not implemented.
Sure.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. So I still have this paper from David Say, well, and the charts from Lucid to go through. But if there is again anything more you want me to look at, I will.
Okay. Let's set a time to sync up this week, and we can go through that stuff in some more detail and talk about next steps.
Okay.
I'll send you an invite for us to meet up later this week.
Okay.
All right, I think that's my turn then. Let me share my GitHub. Okay, you should see it. So I can start with Parity Substrate. There was this pull request 2 weeks ago about making it possible using feature flags to disable RocksDB from Substrate, so we can build Substrate without RocksDB support at all. We launched our Gemini 1B with force enabling of ParityDB, so we don't need it technically. And this will allow us to reduce the binary size, improve build time, and all kinds of good stuff, especially considering we will be removing RocksDB from the farmer, hopefully, in the nearest future. So that one was finally approved, or like it was approved before, but they finally fixed CI checks, so it's green. So I think it will land in the nearest few days, which is great. And then there was a lot of pull requests from last week. I think from code changes, there was one about equivocation for the votes. The basic idea was that the farmer that creates a block that is malicious can create two votes, or can create a block that includes the same vote twice. And that would already cause equivocation because we didn't distinguish the signatures between two votes. We just verified one is valid, the other is valid. We included two votes, done. So from this point, in the parent block votes or voters and current block voters, we are not only storing the account ID for a particular public key and slot, we also store the signature. So we want to actually make sure that those are not identical, because that means that the block is incorrect. And in that case, we will basically consider the whole block invalid, and the farmer will get nothing. This will be an error. And if they're not identical, then there is an equivocation actually happening. This was something discovered during audit, and this went live on Gemini 1B. And there are some test cases for this as well implemented in here. Yeah, there are a few cases. Does it make sense? Okay.
Do we have any kind of a written spec right now for voting, or is it all just in the code?
Of course it is. We have it in Notion. It was initially like a document what needs to be implemented, and there was an update. It kind of reflects what it is.
Okay, great. So I think what we need to do, Daria, and we can talk about this. I just sent you an invite for a meeting tomorrow. Is work on taking this kind of rough description and the current implementation and getting that codified in a specification that has the same level of detail of what we have in the current consensus specification, because it's basically an extension to that consensus specification. So we've got that all in one place. We can talk about that more tomorrow.
Yeah, would you like also to put this in like your docs center that you have in GitHub? So like there is one layer for like simple docs for people, like how to download stuff and start farming, and then there is another layer potentially for developers who need to understand all of that stuff.
I think it's a bigger question.
That's like a next step. Yeah. What we want to do is eventually like occasionally snapshot this or like convert it to Markdown. Right now it's just changing so much that it's much easier to maintain on Notion. But once we do get to it, like a stable release of the spec, then we will definitely publish that in GitHub and expose that through some documentation website. But honestly, that's going to be like once we have some more engineering leadership and process in place. But for now, it's just a matter of getting at least having one copy of the spec that is correct, even if it's not in the right the right tool.
Okay.
Okay, let's move from
Can you
there.
share that link, Nazar, or with Daria, so she's got it?
I
Just
think
in
it's in
protocol,
the blockchain protocol. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen it.
Okay, you got it. Great.
Okay. Then there was a special case for those who managed to install Gemini 1A. Their no data was deleted because the way Substrate works, it only deletes the data of the current chain spec. So just added another special case in addition to all of the test networks to delete it. That's easy. Yeah, there were some workarounds for the way blocks were imported, and there were some fixes for that. Then there was an annoying warning on non-block producing nodes that were trying to submit. I think this will make more sense. On non-block producing nodes, basically, they were trying to submit equivocation, but they are not offering blocks, and those equivocation reports are just extrinsics which are not broadcasted. So it was complaining that I can do anything about it anyway. So why are you submitting it? So basically, there is a check now. If you are authoring blocks, it will submit. Otherwise, it will just print an info and move on without causing an error. Just a nice to have feature. Then there was another fix for the best archive blocks. It was kind of a problem, but it was also not a big problem because after restart it worked. But basically, I forgot that the initial block has a parent which is all zeros, parent hash, but its own hash is not actually zeros. So I just had to change this default to none and handle it as an option going forward. That was a minor change in here. Then another check for workarounds for 1B. Then there was this recommitment improvements. Basically, the problem was that Farmer was consuming a lot of RAM when there was a recommitment happening. The reason for that is that on the Farmer side, we do have an RPC endpoint, which is subscribe archive segment, which basically fires new segments as they are produced by Node. However, Node is also aware of the Farmer, so it waits for confirmation. However, when the recommitment happens, there was a problem where Farmer was not able to respond. And what happens in that case, the RPC layer may know about that, but the block producing part, like Archiver, doesn't know about that. So it just tries again and again, and it submits more and more segments on top of previous one. And it basically means that the Farmer side buffers all those messages until it either manages to finish recommitment and all those messages go through, or it just crashes with out of memory. Just two options. So ideally, it needs to be handled on the Farmer side. So like Farmer needs to throw away all the messages right away. But that's very tricky to implement the way we have architecture right now. So what I did instead, I made the RPC layer aware of what connection actually received what messages. Just don't send the same message twice. So this prevents the problem on the node side. Farmer side basically didn't change, but it prevents the memory from running out of control. And I also separated and created two clients for the RPC. One is for archiving, one is for farming. I think archiving will die off eventually once we sync from the other farmer. But we basically have two queues for them separately, and we have two different latencies as well, because this is like a TCP. So all the messages are blocking other messages. So in this way, we can send them concurrently. So those are like two changes in this pull request that prevent memory usage, which was again released. There was a report from a user about this problem. Any questions about this or comments? Okay, everyone is quiet. Then there was another fix for equivocation, this time for the node, or like for farmers, for block producers. Basically, when we changed the way we did signatures to make them canonical, we didn't update this check. So it was verifying like substrate way, but the signatures were created in a different way. So basically this was always failing. So we had transaction that there is equivocation, And in runtime, it was failing check, so it was basically ignored. And some users were able to get some rewards before they got burned. And I've seen at least 3 that I saw in logs that were burned. There are probably many more that I didn't notice because I wasn't watching the terminal. So this thing is definitely working now. This went live on the Gemini as well. Any questions about this? There are actually tests for this, but tests were not updated either. So I've updated those tests and added one more in the SP consensus subspace to test this specific case. Okay, then there was another interesting thing. Votes actually didn't have any effect. Asterisk. The asterisk is that if the farmer creates both block and some vote, then the vote is included. The reason for that was confusing, and I had to enable tracing logs to actually catch it. But in the end, this error from Substrate was happening. Basically, if you have a transaction in Substrate, and that transaction doesn't specify any tags which you can add with and provides, then the transaction pool on the receiving side cannot distinguish 2 transactions from each other and basically ignores those transactions with no tags provided. It is strange that it actually worked locally for local transaction pool. It was only a problem when the transaction pool errors, like the transaction pool only errored on the receiving side from the network. That's why I didn't catch it before. Yeah, after this went live on Gemini 1B, all of the votes went through and everything started working. It was really unexpected. I should have tested it, but at least we fixed it now. So that will be a lesson for someone. And I also created Verity Substrate. I created a ticket to make that issue easier to discover. Hopefully we'll do something about it. Ideally, it should have failed right away when you try to submit that vote, like if it doesn't make any sense, but it didn't, so. Okay, then there was a refactoring for recommitments. We had a few things that were not quite perfect. I think going through commits would be better. First of all, at some point with Ozgan, we were refactoring this, or maybe it was Ivan already, I don't remember. But basically, we've introduced these 2 things that are log-free and store the current and next database, which will be used for like commitments database, which will be used for different salts. So don't have to care about like what it is. We can just have them without any logs. And I took advantage of those and created getDB entries method instead of going through global commitments databases, trying to list all of them and try to extract them again, taking logs. Just less code and more reliable and log-free in this case. So that was the first step. The second step was to abstract away the mutation the way we had it. So there was this like ugly way of serialization here, and then we were decoding things in here, and then we were doing some mutations. We were basically modifying internal property, which was metadata cache. And then we were calling different, or like, we were calling a different method to like store it actually in database in here. It was like all manual. So all of that was basically replaced with the simple mutate call on metadata. And metadata is an abstraction wrapper now that has database. And basically here it gets the hash map. You can modify the hash map the way you like. And then that get a hash map will be serialized and stored back on disk. We don't need to store this cache because it's not a hot path. It makes it so much easier for different things. And if I hide white spaces, it should be even better. So yeah, the logic is the same. It's just instead of like doing manual work, we are just calling this method. We are just mutating it. And because of that, there is a new module, commitments metadata, that encapsulates that logic under the commitments metadata data structure. Just has new and mutate, and basically that's it. So that was the second step in this refactoring. Then the module for database was renamed to be consistent with the metadata module I added. Nothing interesting here. And then there was some simplification. Yeah, that's something that Ivan has noticed. This was from the branch that was created a long time ago. I think it's in stale. Yeah, commitment LRU removal, take 2. It was 4 months ago. There was some work in progress stuff. I can delete this branch now because we included that. And that and I built on top of that this new thing, which is to make recommitments not block other operations. There was one report here from one user, and there was another one that presumably had deadlock. I read through the code many times. I didn't find how could it possibly deadlock. However, I changed it significantly so it makes more sense and it's easier. And there is definitely no deadlock here as far as I can tell. But I couldn't see it before, so you know. In here, what we had this global like wrapping data structure where we were storing all the databases with different salts. And then we were taking the lock on that. And then we were creating an entry, and then we were storing that entry in the commitments databases. We were taking a lock on an entry, then we were releasing. So there are basically like a lot of tricky interactions with these locks that were hard to follow. And that also meant that while the recommitment is happening, that lock was held all the time. So if we are getting a new piece from the node and we want to plot it, and we plotted that, and we want to create the commitments, we create that. We try to write commitments, and we can't because the lock is taken. So basically, the whole pipeline of the plotting was blocked by that. So it turns out you don't actually need to do all of that in the end. And we can just take this lock, we can create a new entry, and we can just move on. We can release all of the locks. And then we can read how many pieces we have in here. We can read those pieces. We can create tags. And then once we need to write those tags, once they are ready, we can look up that entry, and we can take the lock on that. And if that database wasn't deleted at that point, we can actually write things. If it was deleted, there is nothing to be done. And in that sense, it's much easier in terms of the code. And there is the span of the lock being held is much smaller, and everything just goes all the time. So we can solve, we can farm, and we can also plot while we are doing recommitments. And that fixed a lot of problems for different people already. This is part of the currently pre-release. It will be released in, I don't know, an hour. So that was the latest fix for the farming. I think those are the major things I was working on last week. Any comments, questions about any of this? All right. Alexei, since you joined us here, maybe you can give your update, please.
Yeah, sorry for being late. Something happened with my calendar. About
No worries, Alexei. That was my fault. I didn't invite you to the right meeting, but you're good.
Thank you. Actually, I researched Terraform Cloud, how it works, and it's actually very promising. It has a very nice feature. So we can actually run Terraform operations right out from the UI, or it could be embedded into pipelines. It has a different API for this. So the main key, it is capable of securing Terraform state securely. Also, changes could be accepted in workflow very similar to GitHub. So we can also do some pull requests. All changes are versioned. And also, it takes no skill actually to set up environment via Terraform Cloud, because it could be done via button. It could be done very easily. Also, it has Terraform agents now, which could be set up on the virtual machines, I mean, self-hosted virtual machines. And also, it looks like it should be working on the virtual machines as well. Another thing, I researched Vault for the same HashiCorp company. Also, it makes sense to have combine a cloud with a vault so that we won't have to copy paste passwords, access tokens. Everything could be handled from Terraform provider, which is also great. So we could set up it once. The personal access tokens, the Amazon access keys, and it could be kept there. So no copy pasting would be needed. Everything could be handled by Terraform, and it would be kept in a secure manner. What else? Also, I'm writing something like a DevOps backlog. Once it's fully ready, I plan to discuss it with Nazar, and also I guess it might be. I'm planning to do something very useful this week to set up a cloud with some demo project and the vault, so we could have a fully functional by end of the week. And I guess on the next week, it could be embedded into our production environment. Oh,
Maybe
well,
maybe we can have some kind of showcase for the team of how it works.
yes, of course. Only one drawback. It's not working with Russian IPs. It should be used with VPN. It's no problem. I can help with that if someone needs help on setting up VPNs.
Yeah, it will be helpful. Yeah, back when I asked Ozgan for like, for VPS in DigitalOcean. Yeah, so I already have like my own VPN set it up. Yeah, but it would be helpful to have it somewhat under the company hood.
Right, it could be outlined because it's actually harder to detect, and some services and products are now capable of detecting either the person using VPN or not. So outline usually the best choice for such things. Well, I guess that's all. Not much.
Yeah, we had a few onboarding calls with you, so that's to be expected for the first week.
Only 3, so I guess it would be nice to have other 3 this week as well. So guys like Luchen and Ozgun, I'm looking forward to speak to you guys if you have time for this.
Yeah, please guys make that a priority. If you have not had a chance to sync up with Alexei and have a one-on-one with him, let's get that done this week.
Yeah, I was planning to sync with Alexei when I get the exact network ready.
Cool. Okay, anything else, Alexei?
I guess that's all for now.
Okay, I think that's it for today. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week.